It is time for the 140,000 subscriber LEGO giveaway. I got 1, 2, 3 Star Destroyers that we're giving away. If you like this, let's do more. If you want to see more LEGO giveaways, tell me down below. I might do the Venator for 150, so that'd be cool. Also, if you're here for the regular video, skip to this time. Everyone else, let's see who won the giveaway. The first winner, I think this actually properly might break my computer because there are a 1,000 or so names right here. The first Star Destroyer is going to, I can't pronounce things, is going to Kaz Cody. I think I got it right. Congratulations, Kaz, for winning a Star Destroyer. I will be in contact with you soon. You will know it's me because I'll attach a lovely selfie of my face so that you know it is me. The next winner of the Star Destroyer is, drum roll, maybe, Private Ace. Congratulations, Private Ace. This is your star. Well, it's going to be one of these, but you have won a Star Destroyer. I'll be sending it to you soon. I will be in contact with you, as I said with Kaz, that I will be, sending a lovely selfie of my face so that you know it's not a scammer. The next winner and the final winner of the 140,000 subscriber LEGO giveaway is, I'm going to butcher your last name. Alexander Tahatajan. Congratulations on winning your LEGO. I'm so used to saying lightsaber. Congratulations on winning your LEGO Star Destroyer. For everybody else, thank you for participating. Thank you for all your love and support on the channel. If you want to see another giveaway like this with other LEGOs, perhaps a Venator or 2 or maybe 3, let me know down below and I'll fill up my new apartment with it. Otherwise, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. I love you all, spread the love, and I'll see you guys later.
Hello. Our story begins inside the Jedi Temple, or what remained of it. The imagery of the once pristine order was nothing but shambles, and the apprentice of the Sith Lord was walking through the halls of his former home. Darth Vader's boots and breathing echoed out across the empty chambers of the former Jedi Order. He had just finished his mission in killing another Jedi on the run from the Empire. It had been a good couple years since Mustafar. Vader stopped inside the archives. He had returned to this location a number of times, hoping to find clues regarding the past of the Jedi and where they might have gone into hiding, though it was very likely that none of the survivors of Order 66 were intelligent enough to find this information. Vader looked at a bookshelf of information. His master, Sidious, had been moving holocrons, books, and data out of the Jedi Temple archives and into his own personal residences across the galaxy. Palpatine was trying to use whatever knowledge they had for his own benefit. Of course, everything Sidious found to be useless would be burnt. There was no point to leave remnants of the defeated Order behind. There could be no return of the Jedi. And while Vader was unaware of this, he was searching for more clues himself. As he scanned through documents, he found something that transported him back to before the Clone Wars ended. He found a document created by Grandmaster Yoda, and he remembered it because it was something he assisted Yoda with. During the war, Yoda had become ill in a way, and Anakin helped Yoda escape from the temple to follow a mission. As Vader looked at this document, he realized that Yoda had lied to him. According to the document, there was a Jedi enclave in the core of the galaxy, one where Yoda left behind coordinates too. How peculiar. This did make Vader even more resentful of Yoda, because why would he lie to him as a Jedi? This just further went to show why he felt betrayed by the Order and rightfully decided to abandon it in his own mind. He looked over the document and decided that he would go there alone, destroy the Jedi, and claim their lives as one step closer to the total destruction of the Jedi Order. He did concern himself with the idea that Yoda and Obi-Wan could be there, but something told him that the former Grand Master wouldn't go there himself. It was too obvious, which again led to him to question why Yoda had lied about it to begin with. Vader would plug the coordinates into his shuttle and depart for the system that Yoda had described as a Jedi enclave. The truth is, though, Yoda never lied to Skywalker. He had planted this information inside of the archives following the destruction of the Order. It was placed for anyone who found it, whether they be Jedi or Sith. Vader had no reason to suspect such a move from a complacent Jedi Master. When he arrived, his eyes landed on a nebula-like location. There was a planet and floating rocks, and a sense of uplifting force. Vader sped his shuttle down through the atmosphere of this ethereal body. When the ship landed, he exited and took it all in. He scanned everything and felt a sense of peace wash over him, one that he hadn't felt since the moment he learned that Padme was pregnant following the Battle of Coruscant. He stopped and looked around at the ground, before carefully stepping towards the edge. In a weird way, it reminded him of Mortis. He remembered back to his conversation with Yoda before the end of the war. Yoda had asked him about his encounter with the ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn on Mortis, and Anakin explained that he believed it to be nothing but a superstition, never looking too deeply into that experience. He recalled Yoda's apparent disappointment in the direction of the conversation. At the time, it felt like a weird occasion, but now it led to the glorious peace surrounding Vader, shifting into a hesitant rage. He was angry, but the question he landed on was why? What did he have to be angry about? He looked out across the terrestrial body and saw no signs of a Jedi enclave, leading him to begin his search for the Jedi. Palpatine wasn't made aware of this, but he knew that Vader would leave on his own accordance to find and kill Jedi whenever he found them, so there was never any concern for Palpatine there. Vader stepped away from the vessel, making a mark of its current location, and moving through and under passageways surrounded by floating platforms. It almost felt like he could step off and float to one of the rock formations, but he wouldn't dare do something like that. Vader continued walking until he found more passageways. His patience continued to splinter, as he searched restlessly for this Jedi enclave that Yoda had spoken about. However, something crossed Vader's mind as he traversed this beautiful land. Perhaps Yoda never lied to him directly. Perhaps this land was something more than a Jedi enclave, and the document had been changed by Jocasta Nu or Yoda himself. But why would he do that? What would Yoda gain from shifting his own personal documents inside the archives? Yoda wasn't one to just lie for any reason. There had to be a method to this madness here. The Dark Apprentice scaled a slight incline before finding an empty cave of sorts. His belief that this location led to a Jedi enclave ended here, because no one had touched this land. There wasn't a sign of presence or activity anywhere. This ethereal body was untouched by any civilization, left in its most profound and peaceful state of existence. It could best be described as heavenly, even in the corrupted mind of a Sith. Vader walked further into the cave, as shifting wind started to pick up and float around his legs. His cape twirled in the wind and he moved for his lightsaber as a voice crawled over his shoulder, asking why he had come here. He held the Sith weapon, preparing to ignite it, as he demanded answers on where this voice came from. Silence filled the air, as the voice manifested into multiple outlets, though there was nothing visible for Vader to see. The twisting wind at his feet slowed, and the presence he felt dissipated, leaving him with the question he had just been asked. Why was he here? Vader called out an answer, one that echoed off the walls of the cave. He told the voice that he was here to kill Jedi. He would repeat himself once more before the deafening silence pushed him to go further into the cave. Initially, it was hard to see within this body, but as he continued through it, slight divots in the walls of the cave revealed the blinding aura that he landed within. The further he walked, the less dark it became, and the light of the celestial body became brighter. He stopped and called out to the voice or voices that made themselves present to him, but again he was left with a disappointing silence. He paced back and forth impatiently, not seeing a sign of the Jedi, and now fueled with the question of what brought Yoda here originally. Vader remembered the Grand Master mentioning Qui-Gon's voice, or having interacted with Qui-Gon, but he wasn't hearing that individual. The voice Vader heard, if it was multiple he was unsure, was that of a woman, a soft tone that carried the weight of strength behind it. He walked to the edge of the cliff and again looked down. It was a dead end. How confusing. Vader took a deep breath and looked around, taking in the sights once more. He couldn't lie. This was the most beautiful place in the galaxy. He had never seen anything quite like it in his life. It was so tranquil, and a part of him wished that he could stay here for the rest of time. He stood silently, just basking in the light of the Force, for a few short moments until the voice from before spoke to him again, asking him, this time, if he had found comfort here. Vader searched for the origin of the voice, but still found nothing, which started to irritate him. Was he losing his mind? Was this just a figment of his imagination, or was he actually hearing something? As if he had said those words aloud, the voice told him that he was truly listening. Then it reverted back to the original question. Why was he here? This time the voice referring to him as Chosen One. That was a title he hadn't heard in quite some time. It had been a few years since everything changed after all. He told the voice that he came here to hunt Jedi. The female voice responded, telling him that it had been quite some time since a Jedi had found themselves out here. He asked who that Jedi was, and the voice explained that his name was one he already knew. Vader turned around, looking for these voices, getting tired of these little riddles, but seeing no one. The voice called out, telling him that his frustration and impatience was his undoing. Vader scowled under the mask as the voice expressed that his mask might hide his visual feelings, but every emotion he held was simply easy to read through the Force. He asked that the voice show herself, and she expressed that there was nothing to show. She was a spirit, one that had transcended the living Force to become one with the cosmic Force. She had been a part of this since long before the Jedi or Sith found their first way into conflict. Vader wanted to understand why she would hide herself out here, and she laughed, telling him that there was no hiding. She was at home within the cosmic Force, just like those who bound themselves to the path of the light. Vader swept around, telling her that the Force was darkness, powerful light and powerful dark, and she sighed heavily, telling him that his instructor had led him astray. The Force is not to be corrupted, not to be poisoned. It was the light of the galaxy, the bringer of life. Through the Force, there is only the natural light, something Jedi had forgotten, and something the Sith had refused to believe. As Vader stood in silence, a creature rose from the ground, one with a dark robe and a neutral-looking mask, as she referred to herself as the Force Priestess. She was one, but over the millennium that she had been bound to the cosmic Force, she was able to exert herself in a multitude of entities, those being serenity, joy, anger, confusion, and sadness. However, the Force Priestess only wished to show off her natural state, that being serenity. Vader stood perplexed, and she asked what surprised him, to which she had no response. This shouldn't be possible. Her hands met each other under her sleeves, as she slowly moved to the side, telling him that closing himself off from the possibilities of the Force was perhaps his greatest failure. Vader asked, as a Jedi, and she almost scoffed at him, twisting her head away with disappointment. She told him that his gift was one bestowed to very few across time. However, what he was a gift only given to him. To be a virgin in the Force was not something to be taken lightly, yet he had thrown away its value. He, now even more irritated, saw these call-outs as insults of him, which technically they were. She told him the Master Yoda's trail was not a lie. It was hope for a better future. She moved towards the cave Vader had just left, as her body multiplied, revealing the Force Priestesses of joy, anger, confusion, and sadness. As they all turned back, one voice at a time unveiling Master Yoda's plan. It was clear to them that Yoda had planted the information inside the archives for two different types of individuals. The first type being the escaping Jedi Knights, Padawans, or Masters. If they happened to find the message, they would find guidance here. The second was himself. While the priestesses hadn't talked to Yoda since the fall of the Order, everything was transparent through the Force. They didn't have to try and find answers when they allowed themselves to be open to them. Yoda had secretly hoped that if Obi-Wan or he had failed, that the Sith would find defeat here in this void. Sure, it was a location of true light and balance in the Force, but for those without potential redemption, they would never find their way out. To find one's way in or out required harmony. Now, they turned to Vader. If he wanted to find more answers, he would have to travel to Dagobah. The priestesses raised up into the air and vanished from his view. Vader believed that their words were lies, but he started to trek back through the cave, and he found that it was impossible to find his way back to his shuttle. The worst part is, the further he went in, the darker it got, and without light, he had to use his lightsaber to guide him. Vader stumbled around, finding very little of anything that looked like an escape. When he first entered, he very easily found his way to the other side. This forced him to take what was said by the entity seriously. He started to focus on the light, but after years of following Palpatine's teachings, it wasn't easy to just find the path of light again. He knelt to the ground and felt the floor of the cave with his hands and allowed the essence to flow out of his body, through the metallic circuitry, and into the celestial body. He silenced his mind and allowed his breathing to continue echoing out through the caves. Unlike before, he thought he was hearing the voices of the priestesses, but this time, he actually wasn't hearing them. But the voices inside of his head were pushing him further. The one statement that resided within him was them asking him, the chosen one, to come back. Hours passed by, but he was able to release his grip on the darkness just enough to escape the cave before slipping into the shuttle with a stressed mind. As he entered the vessel, he plugged the coordinates in for another location not within the galactic maps. It was an off-the-radar world, hidden from Force sensitives and galactic maps due to the nexus of the Force that existed there. Vader fled from the ethereal realm so that he could find his answers. When he did arrive on Dagobah, it was a nightmare to find a landing position. He exited the shuttle upon his landing and searched the area. He was looking for why the priestesses sent him here. They did in fact know that Yoda was here, but he was not why Vader was sent. Vader was simply fulfilling a quest that Yoda had taken years before. This time, their hope was that change could and or would come from it. As Vader walked through the trees of the swamp, a glowing light rose from out of the ground and led him forward. It did not say anything, and it only directed Vader further into the forest before leading him into a cave. Vader was completely unaware that this glowing light had nothing to do with the priestesses, but he followed it as if it were. Inside the cave, the light vanished and he felt as he did on the planet at the heart of the galaxy, yet he wasn't trapped. The nexus of Dagobah was very powerful, but it would not withhold Vader from leaving like the previous location did. As he walked through the cave, he was stopped by a vision, one of total war consuming the galaxy, planets being destroyed, and the death of innocents at unimaginable levels. While these weren't necessarily bad in his current mind, it did irk him in some way. He had just been burdened with the knowledge of the future, and he was able to try and change it, or allow it to come as is. He didn't know which one he planned on going with. He sat down inside the cave as a voice once so familiar called out to him. Vader looked over to see Sidious climb out of the shadows, asking him if he was content with the knowledge he had been given. Vader nodded his head, rising and kneeling before his master. Sidious expressed that he was a good pawn, as he turned around telling Vader that he was setting up a path for his own replacement. Vader looked up, to which Sidious turned around, asking if there was a problem with that. He tried to understand why Palpatine was turning on him, but Sidious expressed that there'd be no more questions. This was final. He had expressed his peace with such an outcome. Vader rose with intention to stop Palpatine, and he laughed as Vader dragged his lightsaber down across Palpatine's body, and he dropped. The robes split, but out from them came a face that was revealed. It wasn't the Sith Lord, it was Anakin Skywalker, one with yellow eyes, and a raggedy and scarred face. Vader's saber dropped from his hand and he fell onto his knees. What did this all mean? He would eventually ascend out of the cave on Dagobah and depart the system, finding no answers and returning to Coruscant, where he would search for his master. Despite Yoda being on Dagobah the entire time, the nexus of the Force within the planet cloaked his presence. Yoda did actually see Vader, but he never made himself visible. He believed that the fallen Jedi was up to something, and he trusted the will of the Force. Because Vader only had Palpatine, he was the first person he went to confide in. Vader trusted his master, which is why he felt that asking him for advice and help over this would be beneficial. His vision inside the Dagobah cave was daunting, and he didn't deny that, but he believed that it was simply the Force playing a trick on his mind. He told his master of everything that happened. and it actually concerned the Sith Lord. He had spent the last few years reading through everything within the Jedi archives, carefully saving details he found to be important to his quest for greater knowledge and power. Due to Vader's entrapment inside the ethereal realm, he decided that he would not go there, but he requested that his apprentice continue searching for these priestesses, or the glowing light he referred to, which Vader agreed to do. Vader didn't want to disappoint his master, and he definitely didn't want to do anything wrong by the Sith way. Sidious was annoyed with Vader's use of the light to escape the realm at the heart of the galaxy, but he technically couldn't really blame him. If he hadn't, he wouldn't have escaped. Regardless, Sidious would begin his search for these priestesses, and hope that he could learn more about them from the Jedi archives. If he could, they could come up with a counter to them, so that they could be destroyed or captured or used for their own advantage. Vader's decision to speak to him about this only reaffirmed his belief that his new student was the perfect loyal servant for his empire. Palpatine's desire remained on controlling the Force, so that he would never have to worry about losing his power. Perhaps these vessels of the Force were the key to doing so. Sidious was eager though. What Vader found may be the cure to his wishes. For the time being, he would closely monitor all of Vader's work. If his student was able to temporarily use the light side, then he was fully capable of returning to Anakin Skywalker, something Palpatine did not want. Vader inversely returned to his fleet and his flagship, where he remained idly, waiting for a chance to find this path once more. He believed that revisiting Dagobah would leave him with more questions, so he decided that he would go to the old Jedi world of Tython, hoping that he could find solutions. The thing that Vader was unsure of, though, was how intertwined with the Jedi these Force apparitions were. Did they exist through the Force? Were they extensions of the Jedi Order? Who did they serve, and why did they serve it? He understood that Palpatine would continue searching the archives, so he would continue his own search with a different archive. He landed on Tython with a group of Death Troopers, but they stayed away from him as he began his search. There was also a probe droid tracing him, one released by the Death Troopers, and one that he was completely unaware of. The droid was small and sneaky, meant to avoid detection and relay information back to Sidious, who was now watching. Vader moved through the wreckage of the abandoned temple, and found very little information to be of any assistance to him. He thought about returning to the heart of the galaxy, but he didn't want to get trapped again. For hours he continued moving about the conflicts, until, like before, the wind started sweeping up his legs and he was faced with the spiritual voice of the priestess. She asked if Qui-Gon had guided him well, which confused him more than ever. What did she mean by Qui-Gon? She manifested her voice through her multiple entities as she expressed that the one who guided him on Dagobah was not them. It was someone close to him. However, she believed that Qui-Gon would have said something. Clearly, she was wrong. Vader asked if he should return to Dagobah, and she revealed herself as Serenity, shaking her head, and telling him that if Qui-Gon did not want to be heard, but to be followed, then perhaps it was time for Vader to change his point of view. She moved gracefully away as he followed her, asking for more clarity, to which she explained with more riddles. Qui-Gon cared deeply, that much was clear, but he would not do the heavy lifting. He gave Vader the chance to see reality, to see what he would cause, to see what his loyalty would cost him. Qui-Gon led Vader to the reality he chose not to see, but his decision to hide himself was because Vader needed to prove that he was fully capable of returning as Anakin Skywalker. Serenity held her back straighter, insisting that he remember Qui-Gon's words on Mortis. He believed that Anakin would face his demons, conquer the darkness, and bring balance to the universe. She stopped, asking if that was what he believed he would see. Vader didn't know. He stood silently as she informed him that his master feared such a reality. His eyes turned back and he found a probe droid facing him, which Vader crushed with the Force. When he looked for Serenity once more, she was gone. Did Darth Sidious not trust him? Did he legitimately lie to him about his previous feelings? The thought of being lied to in such a manner hurt his heart, and he wondered about what he should do now. Sidious knew of his conversation with the priestess, so what was there to do? He couldn't conquer Palpatine, and he knew that something about the Sith Lord scouring the galaxy for a future people was afoot, so that left him with very little choices. He could let Palpatine use him until he was no longer valuable, or he could make his own decision. He could lead a life he wanted, and while it would be without power, it would be with the power of choice. Knowing that Palpatine was watching and even tracking him, forced him to decide that he would make his return to the celestial body that he found himself in before. His hope was that Palpatine would track him there. So that's where he went. As he did before, he landed his shuttle and walked out to the edge of the cliff and waited. Instead of impatience, he felt clarity. This didn't mean he was rushing back to the Jedi way. This didn't mean he was looking for forgiveness. It was a recognition of his place in the galaxy. Everything in his life was leading to this moment, because as the priestess said, he was only one of one, gifted with this role in the galaxy. It was only right for him to follow the path laid before him. As he watched the floating rocks and the nebula twist and turn, he gained a profound sense of understanding. He was always meant to make the difficult decisions, and he always chose the easiest. When presented with a choice throughout his life, he always went the route of least resistance, and it always failed him. Whether it be when he was a Jedi or a Sith, his decisions always led to a terrible outcome for himself or for others, because he refused to choose a challenge. While much of his memory from Mortis had been erased, he was brought there because the father wanted Anakin to make a choice, one that wasn't easy, but would have ensured the remaining natural balance of the galaxy. Skywalker did not choose that, and therefore the son was able to kill the daughter, and the natural order of light and dark were disrupted. The Force was plunged deeper into war, and the Sith rose above. These realizations sat in his mind as he understood the cost of his actions. But the truth is, he still didn't know what he was going to do here. He couldn't straight up kill Palpatine, even if they fought, which he was unsure if they would do or not. Vader, in a weird way, still trusted the Emperor. Was it wrongly placed? Likely. But he was still the only person in the galaxy he could legitimately trust. Vader waited for his master to come to him, but he never did. This forced him to question himself further, because why would Sidious put a probe with his crew on Tython? Something was so odd about this. As he waited at the cliff, he felt called to look over, and he saw the physical ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn. He asked Anakin if he had found his peace, and he stood silently, surprised by this vision or whatever it was. He asked if this was real, and Qui-Gon shrugged his shoulders. If it wasn't, then was anything else he had seen over the past few days real? Vader swayed at the edge of the cliff, asking why this was happening, and Qui-Gon, quick as ever, responded asking why Vader was allowing it to happen. The former Jedi stepped a little closer, reminding Anakin of who sat within his heart. Maybe tortured by the life he chose to live for himself, but things weren't over until he gave up. If Vader was Anakin giving up, then the rest of his life wasn't worth living. But if Anakin could see that maybe the setbacks were just that, then maybe there was a true future for him where he didn't sacrifice his life to a path he was unsure of frequently. Anakin remained unsure though, but Qui-Gon knew that the answer existed within him. His dreams, his thoughts, the days he spent away from his new master, it was always there. The priestesses didn't do it for him, they didn't expose him to the reality he was sitting in, they just made it easier to see. Vader tilted his head down, and when he looked up, Qui-Gon was once again gone. This message from the Jedi Master would transform his own life. If he wanted to see change, he needed to be it. When Palpatine didn't arrive, he left the celestial body, but before he could prepare the hyperdrive, he came across 3 Star Destroyers sitting idly outside the nebula. They didn't enter because they were waiting for Vader. Once his shuttle was seen, Sidious contacted him via hologram, asking if he was planning to lure him onto the surface, and Vader shook his head. He came here for clarity, and Sidious asked what said clarity was. Vader explained that it was a freedom from the Sith, and the choice to find his own path, through the light of the Force. Palpatine told the destroyers to fire on Vader's shuttle, as the Sith apprentice swung the control yokes back and punched them forward, lifting the ship towards the nebula itself. Sidious ordered a chase, as the destroyers ignited their engines and pursued. Anakin felt in control once again, and there was nothing greater than flying. He felt alive, and this was partially due to his closeness to the ethereal body he had spent so much time on. He piloted towards the blinding light, as his ship and he were guided by the light. The destroyers behind him pulled closer and closer, but due to the lack of connectivity, they started to break apart. Sidious focused solely on ending his student so that he could unlock the ultimate power of this realm, didn't notice this. The crews on the destroyers started to focus their power on their shields. Palpatine continued to order the chase, and panels of the destroyers ripped apart. Vader swung his vessel around, using his hand to connect to the nebula and guide him further in. He was protected and safe. The space anomaly shredded through the bow of the Star Destroyers, as their power started to drift away from their controls. Sidious looked down, but before he could see the destroyers, his vision was clouded. 5 faces with varying expressions revolved around his head. Serenity, joy, anger, confusion, and sadness, all blinding him with their expressions as they sped up, faster and faster. Palpatine fell backwards, trying to do anything to stop them. In the process of doing so, he shattered the glass on the viewports of the bridge, sucking himself and the command deck out of the ship and into the nebula itself, where they would be forever trapped. The crew would be lucky enough to pass away, but the Sith Lord would remain in an eternal purgatory, one where he could neither live nor die. His pain wouldn't fuel him, but it would also hurt him deeply. The Force itself would punish him for the actions he took against the people of the galaxy. Anakin's shuttle, on the other hand, would escape, with Vader piloting away from the fleet and beginning the next leg of his journey. He wouldn't shed the Vader suit. However, he would begin to harmonize more with the Force, in the way that he had learned in the center of the galaxy. The Priestesses hadn't saved him. They just made his vision clearer. They helped him see himself. His journey would take him on a few-year expedition to a multitude of planets. Firstly, Yavin 4, Teth, and Tython. Most of these locations were retreats for him, as the Empire itself changed. The total war he had seen on Dagobah would not become reality, rather a figment of a reality never to be seen by anyone other than himself. Vader was no more, but it didn't change the fact that he was housed within the suit. The Empire's change was cataclysmic politically, but its ramifications wouldn't be detrimental to the future of the galaxy, rather just a systematic change that was necessary in the sudden absence of the Emperor. Over the years, Anakin came into his own understanding of the Force, and what it meant to him. He initially found it was hard to find his peace, but it slowly consumed him. Anakin knew that the fight he had been a part of throughout his life was coming to a conclusion. Maul wasn't of any concern, as he would still end up on Malachor, but never be freed from it. So Anakin continued to search the galaxy for a long-lost friend. And after years of coming into harmony with the Force itself, he would find an old master, one hiding in the deserts of Tatooine. Obi-Wan would be met with shock when he learned that Anakin had survived, but the purified lightsaber and the lighter armor would tell him everything he needed to know about his former pupil. This change from within Anakin did not overwrite his mistakes in the past, but his dedication to this change would be instrumental in taking steps to creating a brighter future. Obi-Wan and Anakin would have much to discuss, but in time, their brotherhood would return. Anakin would learn of his close encounter with Yoda on Dagobah, being that Obi-Wan knew the former Grand Master called the planet home. But Anakin would keep away for a couple more years, until he decided the time was right to return to Yoda. Obi-Wan would spend a couple months hiding the twins from Anakin, despite being so close physically to Luke. He just couldn't trust Anakin for those first few months. But as the time went on, he saw the continuous dedication to change made by Anakin, and Obi-Wan believed that this was who he really was now. While the Empire would have its political rebirth, the Jedi would have a literal one. Anakin wouldn't ever return to the Jedi, but it would be the reason for their continued safety going into the future. Anakin's own transformation would be inspiration enough for Obi-Wan to have his own transformation, one where he would take on the role of Grand Master and bring life to the new Jedi Order. Anakin would unite with his children after finding a new makeshift outfit. His hair wouldn't grow back, but he would embrace himself in such a change. The Order was saved. The Skywalkers were reunited with their extended family, and the galaxy had a new shot at hope. Anakin's relationship with the Force Priestesses would remain strong, as well as his connection to Qui-Gon. It would be through Anakin that Obi-Wan would bring new and old Jedi to the nebula at the heart of the galaxy, so that this new generation of Jedi could be the architects of inspiration for a galaxy now healing from the rule of the Sith. And that, my friends, is our story. Again, special thanks to all the patrons: Benjamin Wells, Ozpin, Angel Dust, Darth Vitiate, Seju Jagger, Groot36, Hunter Belden, Rosebird, Jack Silver, Lindo Asher, Alexander Reese, The Beginning and End, Jango Fett Clone, Nick5098, Ben Ingram, The Big Red Purimark, Diamond Constant, Darth Nemesis, Lord Tibbs, CC2024, Galavic Gaming, Tristan, Mandalore, Sir William 1767, Darth Revan, Granddaddy Bane, Lally Ant, Sky Guy, Penguin, Cullen Rooney, Shark Midori, RJ38, Nick, Michael Erlanger, Last Jedi, Apollo, Wiwu670, Annika Stank Runner, CT7567, Toaster Oven, Oz of Oz, Darth Knox, The Eternal Padawan, Joshua Tem, Johnny DeGuin, Sansa Skeleton, Jedi Sloth, Mr. Yeet Gamer, Lord Cali, Gunling Slayer 66, Batman Studios, Anakin003, Lord Draken, Fortis Legacy Star Wars, Airbus, Rex the Wolf, The Many Three First Names, Darksaint 46, Baron Joshua, and Lord Deadwing. For supporting the channel, smash that like button. Let's talk about this story. So a lot of the inspiration for this comes from the arc in, I think, Season 6 of the Clone Wars, where Yoda interacts with these Force priestesses. And I feel like in doing a story revolving around the priestesses, kind of like the Bendu story I did a little while back, I feel like it would be a lot more spiritual with the Force. And so that was a lot of the emphasis in this. I think a lot of this is Vader's just confusion, but his confusion in knowing that Palpatine is the bad guy, regardless of his trust for him. I also use a scene from Rebels where the Arquentans is torn apart by the nebula when they're going to the Lasat homeworld that's hidden behind the nebula or whatever. That was kind of the big inspiration for how Palpatine's defeated here. Just the ships getting torn apart and not having a true connection of light or force to lead them through the nebula to safety. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the story. I love you all, spread the love, and always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.